Wednesday, the 16th of October. Welcome to Business Morning, our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. Let's get the show started. I am Bosin Amafai. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank's first day of their outdoor meetings for 2019 in Washington kicked off yesterday. The latest World Economic Outlook painting a grim picture of the state of the world economy. The IMF revised growth forecast for 2019 and 2020 much lower, blaming a number of vulnerabilities in advanced economies, in particular the US and China. The IMF World Economic Outlook report also revised Nigeria's 2019 growth downwards to 2.3%, ranking Nigeria as a low-income developing nation in sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan economic growth is expected to be 3.2% in 2019. That's much higher than Nigeria's 2.3%. So look at the current economic leaders in sub-Saharan Africa right now, and Nigeria and other biggest names like South Africa are not on the list. Ghana is currently leading the sub-Saharan African economy, and one of the fastest globally, even as well. Ghana is doing 7.5% according to the IMF, just ranking back-to-back or on the same level as the Côte d'Ivoire, its closest neighbor in West Africa, 7.5%. These are two of the largest economies after Nigeria in West Africa. Ethiopia, at the Horn of Africa, 7.4%, just slightly behind Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. Senegal, back to West Africa, is doing 6%. So you find the three of the fastest growing economies in sub-Saharan Africa in West Africa, and Nigeria is not on that list. Kenya is number 5 and is looking at a GDP growth of 5.6%. Yesterday, the Nigerian Senate passed the Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contract Act of 2014, now amended bill for 2019. The amendment now will pave way for the Nigerian government to rake in at least $1.5 billion in revenue next year from the international oil companies. That's the IOCs. The president of Senate, Ahmed Lawan, tweeted that the law, however, which is now being amended, will not in any way discourage investment by the oil and gas company. Lawan went to tweet that when we legislate, we will always be mindful of the need to have a competitive environment. So let's talk about the other big story that's been making the headlines, and that's what we're drilling down into this morning. Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry late yesterday issued a 3-page comment on the total land border closures by the Nigerian authority, outlining what you call the upsides and the downsides to the latest action and the dilemma that the Nigerian government faces. So we try to just break it down for you in terms of gainers and losers and counting the costs. On the gainers list, what are we gaining by putting Nigeria's land borders across the country under total lockdown? Smuggling of petrol products have declined considerably, and that's in line with what the customs chief said, about 10.2 million liters per day. Now you find drastic reduction in smuggled rice, poultry products, and sugar on the gainers list. Also, a higher security at the borders, preventing bad and criminal elements and those who doesn't have the right documents to come in. And that's how far the gainers list go. But look at the losers list, according to Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The corporate in informal sector, individuals doing legitimate business across borders are losing money. Jobs are being lost. Prices of goods have skyrocketed. Legitimate exports have now been totally stopped. Intermediate products for some industries have been cut off. In fact, some multinationals who have their sister companies in the West Africa region have now been delinked from their main operations. So let's count the costs. Flip it over. The trade sector in Nigeria is one of the largest employer of labor. Everyone knows that. The distributive trade in Nigeria is about 15% of the GDP. That's about 20 trillion naira. The traders play major roles in the value chain, whether they are in Maiduguri, in Kano, in Aba, or here in Lagos. More than 90% of Nigeria's ECOWAS trade is by road, not by sea. Nigeria also exports agricultural goods and consumer goods, including bathroom flip-flops, including detergents, soaps, and every other thing across West Africa. We also re-export products to the sub-region. This is as big as this story can get.